Chapter 88. Many people know that I have only slept for 2 hours since yesterday morning. I have spent the rest of my time defending my rights. The act of the infringer is to make use of the school hunks fans and infringe upon the school hunks copyright without my authorization. According to the perpetrator, she was helping to set up a fan club, claiming that they want to be the support group I described in my article. Thank you, but I don't need your help. I'm the copyright owner of this book. The School Hunks fan club has always been around, in 10-cent bookstore and on official channels. The School Hunks official manager, Lu Bei, Sister Turtle, who appeared in the novel, is the person I described in the novel, not someone you guys brought in by force. It felt like the characters in the book were about to cry from the humiliation. Don't cry. Daddy will make you look more handsome in the future. This incident could also be used as material to write about. After all, the little cuties in 10-cent bookstore's fan club were doing charity every day to make the school hunk better and better. You, on the other hand, are infringing on the original author's painstaking efforts and obstructing the development of the school hunk. There would be no harm without comparison. As for infringement, the law clearly states that a work of the same genre without the authorization of the original author is an infringement. Now the infringer is defending himself. They like the school hunk. They are genuine fans. Our genuine fans are self-righteous. Excuse me. It must be because I didn't sleep enough to hear such a dumb joke. My fans are the cutest fans in the world. They are young and sometimes deceived. I wanted to thank them in every way I could think of. It's not wrong to say that they're infringers, but they don't understand why we're defending our rights. The group of people replied with anger that came from the depths of their hearts. It came from protecting. No one would remain silent when they saw something they liked being destroyed. As a school grassland author, I called out to those who truly liked the school hunk. Reason complains. He only complained about the 4719555018 group. Don't get involved in anything else, and don't care about anything else. We only complain about 4719555018. You don't need to join the group to complain. You can just click on the top right corner to complain. When he saw some strange comments. For example, admin, you have to hold on. We love this book so much. You have to withstand the pressure and work hard. For example, if we like a book, we don't need to like the author. In such a situation, don't be angry. Hug my babies. Don't be angry. It hurts to see you guys angry. As for those who are saying these things, I know that you don't really like this book. And you don't care that the creator's hard work is being lost, and you don't care that you're ruining the school hunk and stealing it. But in this world there was a saying, justice may be late, but it will never be absent. The original author could not be protected for the time being. The school hunk was temporarily unprotected. But that didn't mean they would never be protected. The infringers were clamoring for a lawyer's letter and a statement. Therefore, this statement must be posted here. In order to protect my rights, I will definitely reduce the number of updates. The like mentioned by the violator had already damaged the school hunk. If one day I break even more, he must be dealing with this infringement case. So be prepared, dear ones. It's a pity that I've spared these 2 days to prepare for writing. I really don't have the time to defend my rights. Infringement was the bottom line. If they couldn't handle it, they could only defend their rights. The infringers were too unsightly. Also, I would like to thank the beauty who has been helping me complain and defend my rights. I will start legal proceedings to defend my rights. The perpetrator probably didn't dare to reveal her real name. We'll find out, but it'll take time. So dear ones, give me some strength, let us get through this together. We're not white lotuses. We won't be like the infringers, saying that we're wronged and that it's not wrong. We will only defend our rights and protect the current school hunk. Chapter 89. His beautiful thin lips lowered his voice, with a deep warning. Don't flirt with everyone you see. I was just saying hi to Secretary Liang. Fu Jiu sat back lazily with one hand behind her back, looking very handsome. Qin Mo thought about this guy's flirting skills and didn't believe him at all. He threw a book into his hands and said in a lukewarm voice, Lower your head and read your magazine. Secretary Liang is an old man. What's so interesting about him? Secretary Liang, who was in the front, almost vomited blood when he heard this. He was not young, was he? But who did he piss off that CEO had to be so mean to him? Fu Jiao flipped open the magazine, took a few glances, and lost interest. She turned her head and said to the man who was sitting so elegantly, "Do you have a magazine with beautiful men and cars? Let's have a look." Hearing this, Secretary Liang's heart jumped again. All of a sudden, he remembered something. This young Master Fu of the Fu family, he was gay. The CEO couldn't have been turned gay by him, right? No, that's impossible. Even if his young master didn't like women, he wouldn't like men either. But what if it was true? Wait a minute. How could he forget that CEO was in an online relationship, and there was a little vixen waiting for him in the game, sending him WeChat messages every day? So it was impossible for CEO to be gay. His imagination was really too rich. Ha! Just when Secretary Liang was about to heave a sigh of relief, he saw his CEO reach out and pinch the youngster's chin. His handsome face was also very close. That posture was like the posture before a kiss, breaking the distance he had been maintaining with people for many years. I don't care what your sexual orientation is, but when you join the team, you are not allowed to flirt with anyone. You'd better put away those weird things you read and only read that business magazine. If you don't shut up, I will throw you out. That tone was not threatening at all. Apart from the gloomy feeling of gnashing his teeth, it really sounded like he was disciplining his younger brother. But what did CEO say? Join the team. That meant that the little vixen CEO went to the club to find today was the loser young Master Fu. Was that so? No, he had to confirm it. He couldn't just make random guesses. How could the internet secret lover that the CEO couldn't forget be a man? Young Master Jiao, how did you meet our president? To be honest, when I saw you just now, I was also shocked. Fu Jiao also thought this Secretary Liang was a good person. She held the magazine and said casually, I met him in the game. Today, I went to the Qin Corporation's internal competition. Brother Mo came to see me to see how I did. It really was that little vixen. Secretary Liang couldn't tell what he was feeling now. He looked straight ahead, his palms sweating. Just like that, Fu Jiao was sent home. When she got out of the car, she turned sideways to pick up the computer parts she had bought. Between her white top and black belt, her smooth and fair waist was exposed. It was a breathtaking curve. Chapter 90. The clothes she was wearing. Weren't they short? Fu Jiao looked down at herself. Didn't other boys wear normal-sized tops like this? As for manliness, she, who was a woman at heart, had no need for it. Of course, she wouldn't say this out loud. She just replied casually, got it. Mo looked at the young man's nonchalant look and raised his eyebrows. I'm going to play tennis tomorrow. You can come too. I have class tomorrow. Did Almighty Qin forget that she was still a student? Mo's voice was very calm. I'll wait for you after class. My little brother can't look like this. Look like this? What does it look like? Fu Jiao laughed. She put her hand on Mo's shoulder and approached him slowly. Brother Mo, do you dare to say that I'm not handsome? Mo pushed the young man's hand away and pinched his chin. There was still a little bit of disdain in his eyes, and his tone was cold. You are at most pretty. Handsome my A*S. Come exercise with me. Don't play games at home all the time. You're making yourself so tender. She was blaming her for her good skin? Fu Jiao realized that Almighty Qin really wanted to raise her as his little brother. If Almighty Qin found out that she was a girl, would he crush her to death? Fu Jiao glanced at the man guiltily. Actually, I have something to do tomorrow. Mo laughed. He was a little black-bellied, and he was very domineering. Keep your excuses. I'll pick you up at the school gate after class tomorrow. Fu Jiao. She really couldn't slip away. Go in. Mo tilted his head and lit a cigarette. He leaned against the sports car and raised his eyebrows at her. Fu Jiao curled her lips. Okay, Brother Mo, send me a WeChat message when you get home. Okay, Mo replied and got in the car. He left first. Fu Jiao watched the black sports car disappear before she went into the house. It seemed like someone had been in the house. Things were thrown on the ground, and it was a mess. Fu Jiu's eyes turned cold, and she asked Chen Xiaodong, "What's going on?" "The few remaining members of the company have been poached away. Now the company has become an empty shell. Madam is upset, so. Chen Xiaodong clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. They even mocked Madam for not having the slightest bit of ability, for not being able to bring out a decent team. Fu Jiu raised her hand and threw the things onto the sofa with a smack. She smiled coldly. "Who else is coming?" "Liang Xuguang, Zhang Yingqiao, and Ye Su. These 3 people are all on the rankings. When they first joined the company, their conditions weren't very good. Many places didn't want them. It was Madam who saw that they came from small places and couldn't bear to let them go back, so she spent a lot of effort to groom them. Now that they have fans and their skills have improved, they are stepping on Madam Ba." Young master, in fact, what hurt Madam the most was not that they had left, but that she had been betrayed by the person closest to her. Chen Xiaodong's eyes turned red at the end. After hearing this, Fu Jiu stopped going upstairs. She put on the jacket she had just taken off. Her silver hair was blown away by the wind, and her eyes were full of coldness. "Wait a minute. Where are you going?" Chen Xiaodong followed behind. Chapter 91. After autumn, the weather became cold. It was indeed chilly to skateboard outside at this hour. When she entered the internet cafe, Fu Jiu straightened her jacket collar. This young man had been here when the machine broke last time, so the boss of the internet cafe had a good impression of Fu Jiu. Another half an hour this time? The boss had a cigarette in his mouth and was fiddling with something with his head down. "You don't have to pay. It's open over there. Go play by yourself." Fu Jiu found the boss interesting the first time she met him, so she came to this internet cafe again. "I'll play for a long time this time. Until midnight. Give me a good machine." "What are you doing?" "Playing games." The boss raised his eyes. His chin was quite handsome. Fu Jiu replied with a half smile, but her eyes were cold. "All right then. Number 19 in Zone A. What game will you be playing later? I heard that a good team is going to play Hero today. You can watch." Fu Jiu laughed. "I'm watching this live broadcast." The boss didn't quite understand. He only felt that the young man's handsome face was especially cold today. The internet cafe wasn't small. Fu Jiu sat down along the queue, turned on the computer, and logged into the game. Then she glanced at the rankings. Using the code implantation, she located the positions of those 3 people. Liang Xuguang, Zhang Yingqiao, and Ye Su. These 3 used their nicknames when they played games, but now that they were signed by a company, they used their real names to attract fans in the live broadcast in order to attract more fans. Fu Jiu glanced at the time on the computer. There was still half an hour before the live broadcast. That was enough time for her to break through the perimeter of the interview. Fu Jiu narrowed her eyes. "Ka-ka, ta-ta." A pair of fair and slender hands danced on the white keyboard, and the rhythmic tapping sounded like a lively piece of music. This was what the boss of the internet cafe saw when he walked over with the lollipop the young man wanted. "Good hand speed, but what are you doing?" Fu Jiu quickly switched to the game page and curled up her thin lips. "Nothing, doing some English homework." "Homework on the computer?" The boss found it interesting, so he chatted with Fu Jiu a bit more. "So you play Hero too. There's a competition in the internet cafe, and if you win, you get a prize. Do you want to sign up?" Fu Jiu unwrapped a lollipop and held it in her mouth. She smiled lazily. "I'm not good at it." "That's a pity. I think his hand speed is pretty good." The boss shook his head and walked away. In his heart he was muttering, "Why does that English sound so weird? Could it be that he hadn't gone to school for so many years that he couldn't keep up with the times?" Now that there was no one around, Fu Jiu opened the code window again. Her silver hair moved slightly, and she coolly hacked into the platform room where she was going to broadcast. Just as she was about to move, her phone rang. It was a WeChat message from Almighty Qin. "Where are you?" "Internet cafe." Fu Jiu didn't even think before she replied with 2 words. Qin Mo sat on the office chair and arched a brow. "I'm asking where your game is. I won't be farming today. I have something to do." Fujio typed very fast. Qin Mo's deep eyes dimmed. Did someone offend you again? Is that why you went to the internet cafe to deal with them? Just like Director Zhang last time? Fujio tilted her head and replied with a voice message. Brother Emo, don't talk nonsense. I'm just looking for someone to play a game with. Chapter 92. Fujio looked at the increasing number of viewers on the live broadcast platform, and she smiled. It would be great if Brother Emo could come. Hearing the deep voice, Qin Emo knew something was up. He tilted his head and lit a cigarette. He tapped on the keyboard and entered the game. Following the code the youngster gave him, he automatically came to a live broadcast platform. There were 3 youngsters on the screen, wearing the new team uniform, and they were being interviewed online. I heard that the 3 of you just changed companies. How are the benefits this time? The fans are very concerned about the benefits you mentioned on Weibo. Liang Shuguang was the most handsome among them, so he was the one who mainly spoke. He wore headphones and sat in front of the computer. When the camera turned to him, he smiled and said, "The new company is more than 10 times better than the previous company that cheated people. Those who like us can rest assured. In the future, we will work hard to present a better condition for everyone. I've heard about the previous company, and it was really not that good." To increase the exposure, the host didn't end the topic. Liang Shuguang said yes, then shrugged his shoulders. There's nothing we can do about it. The boss is from the countryside. He likes to yell and shout at people. I think the people in the team can't stand it, so they left. A boss who doesn't know how to respect others won't last long. The host closed the book and smiled. But you guys have met a talent scout, and your future development will definitely get better and better. Liang Shuguang also smiled. I think so too. Okay, let's stop talking. I'm sure the fans and friends are waiting anxiously. The host pretended to be excited and said, My colleagues were just saying that the 3 of you are all masters on the rankings, and you are worshipped by many people. The previous company didn't know how to advertise, which delayed your development. Now, you can finally open our eyes. Now it's time for the Almighties to enter the game. Fans, if you have any questions, you can ask them on the live broadcast platform. Remember to send gifts. As soon as the host finished speaking, the live broadcast platform was flooded by one person. It was Fujio. She was wearing black headphones, and her silver hair was shining. Since you are the Almighties, do you dare to accept a match on the spot? How could such a message come out? This was not following the script at all. The host furrowed his brows and subconsciously turned to look at the director. However, the director gestured for her to continue the broadcast. What was even more strange was that he didn't know if there was a problem with the network. Their platform seemed to have been controlled by someone, and all the other fans couldn't say anything at this moment. Thus, the words that resembled a battle invitation dominated the entire screen like a cold mountain night. There was no one who didn't know what the words webcast meant. If he were to reject her now, he would be losing face before he even made his debut. And looking at that avatar, it seemed to be a newbie. What an arrogant fellow. Since he wanted to be beaten up, he would fulfill his wish. Chapter 93. Coach. Qin Mo was among the audience watching the live stream. With a cigarette between his slender fingers, he loosened his tie when he saw the 2 words. He sat on the high-end leather chair with his legs slightly crossed and a cold smile on his face. Someone at this level was qualified to coach his little brother? Thinking of the clean and elegant young man before, and then looking at Liang Shuguang, who had a smug look on his face, Qin Mo instantly felt that his little brother was many times better. It would be even better if he could change his flirting habit. Of course, Almighty Qin didn't realize that his current thinking was a typical brother-con. In the internet cafe, Fujio was wearing her black headphones. She smiled evilly and replied with one word. You. Me. Liang Shuguang laughed even louder. My dear fan, I advise you to choose the other 2. If I fight with you, your HP will be depleted very quickly. Fujio held the lollipop in her mouth and sneered. How would you know without fighting? What? You don't dare to take it? My dear fan, I'm giving you a chance that won't be too embarrassing. Since you don't cherish this chance, come on. Liang Shuguang moved his fingers and entered the hero. Instantly, two game characters appeared on the screen, facing each other. Fu Jiu's account couldn't be any more new, but if Liang Shuguang had taken this match seriously and looked at her record, he wouldn't have been so full of himself. A new account had completed 29 first clears in a short period of 1 month. This kind of data would be top-notch in any club. But Liang Shuguang only saw that this player named Spade Z didn't even have any decent clothes on him. He only had an inconspicuous bronze sword on his back, and it was a gift from the grocery store after learning the skill. Liang Shuguang's disdain deepened. "Friend, your equipment is too lousy. Do you need me to let you have a few moves first?" "No need." After Fu Jiu typed, she spat out the lollipop in her mouth and skillfully picked a chocolate-flavored one into her mouth. She tilted her head and smiled. Do professional players talk so much during a match? Liang Shuguang narrowed his eyes. Was she shameless? Heh, in that case, let's begin. Liang Shuguang's sneer could be seen by everyone watching the live broadcast. Zhang Yingchao and Nye Su encouraged him. "Shuguang, he's just an amateur. Just teach him a little. Don't take it too seriously." "All right. Give me a minute. Once everyone's settled down, we'll live stream the dungeon." Liang Shuguang confidently put on his headphones and placed his fingers on the keyboard, waiting for the game's 3-second countdown. He wanted to stun his opponent first and then use a few moves to destroy him. This way, it would be more interesting to watch on the live broadcast. However, what he did not expect was that just as he moved his index finger, before he could even use his proudest gaming skill, he saw a flash of light across the computer screen. His HP bar dropped at lightning speed. He did not even see his opponent's movement clearly before he fell heavily to the ground in a spray of blood. In the internet cafe, Fu Jiu was waving her mouse and typing on the keyboard. Her movements were beautiful, and she didn't even give her opponent a chance to revive. She used another big move. Chapter 94. Lost? He actually lost in front of his fans? Liang Sudong's frozen expression was transmitted to every corner of the country through the live broadcast. How long had it been? 10 seconds? 20 seconds? Definitely less than half a minute. And the result? Liang Shuguang, who was yelling about teaching someone a lesson, was killed in seconds as soon as the game started. Everyone who was watching the live broadcast was shocked. Many players in the internet cafes even stopped playing games and stood up to watch the big screen in the internet cafes. They were crazily scrolling through the screen, and that fiery scene couldn't be controlled at all. Who the hell is this guy? He's so handsome, so handsome. Wait a minute. I think I can leave a message. Quick, ask who he is. Is he from some professional league? Absolutely not. Why do I feel like his game name is a bit familiar? F*CK. I remember. Spade Z. He's the Spade Z who swept the first clears in Zone C. Why do I feel like Spade Z hid his achievements on purpose? You don't say. I feel the same way, haha. My big Spade is so two-faced. What new king of professional league? He's so weak in front of me, the great Spade. He just said that he would let his opponent win, but he didn't even use any skills. What an embarrassing slap to the face. The boss of the internet cafes couldn't compare with these youngsters. Although he liked playing games, he wasn't that crazy about idols. When he walked over with the Coke that the customer ordered, he accidentally looked at the silver-haired young man's computer and was stunned. The young man who said that he wasn't good at playing hero had pure black headphones on his head and a lollipop in his mouth. His side profile was so handsome that he looked like he walked out of a comic book. He was in a one-on-one battle with someone in the arena. With a shake of the mouse, the intense and beautiful operation stopped abruptly, and the whole screen was filled with the silver victory sign. He didn't look like someone who didn't know how to play at all. Instead, he looked like a master among masters. The boss walked over and wanted to take a closer look. But after he saw the game character on the screen clearly, his eyes shook violently. Spade? Spade Z? Fu Jiu looked like she had just gotten out of a fight. She looked back fiercely with a lollipop in her mouth. She put her slender fingers on her lips and made a shushing gesture with an evil smile. The boss was really shocked. He looked at the young man's androgynous face, and then looked at the 200-inch LCD screen hanging on the wall of his internet cafe, which was still playing the live broadcast. The excited voice echoed throughout the internet cafe. Every gamer deeply worshipped Spade Z at this moment. That beautiful and arrogant movement, that explosive strike, that elegant move that struck the enemy in an inch of space. But this godly player, who had been repeatedly picked by professional teams, was actually sitting in his internet cafe and playing games. What's more, he was using a machine that cost 5 yuan per hour. He had always been treated as a high school kid who only knew how to play single-player games. Who would have thought? Excitement, astonishment, and vexation filled his chest. In the end, the boss couldn't take it anymore. He clutched his chest and said, "I'm going to have a cup of cold water to calm myself down." Chapter 95. The arrogant sentence dominated the entire screen. The live broadcast platform was almost flooded by the players. They were fascinated by Spade Z's strength. He could kill you without any equipment. Liang Sudong's already pale face was stained with a layer of heavy anger after seeing this sentence. His fingers held the mouse tightly. If it wasn't for the fact that he was still doing a live broadcast, he would have already started cursing. This guy was obviously here to make things difficult for him, and he even hid the victory. He did it on purpose. The host also saw the suspicion in this and quickly spoke up for Liang Sudong. Even the network speed was affected during the live broadcast. Instead, the audience who came to challenge benefited from it. Although this result is a bit unexpected, it's not difficult to see the character of our almighty Xu Guang. He is very considerate of the fans and even gave up the victory. Shouldn't such a player get more love from you? Just from the host's words, it was obvious that she didn't understand games at all. In that match just now, there was no problem with the network speed, and it wasn't because Liang Sudong gave up the victory. It was because he was crushed from the beginning to the end without any power to fight back. The people watching the live broadcast were the real players. As soon as the host finished speaking, a series of words appeared on the platform. How can the host say that he gave up in such an obvious situation? Where's her professional ethics? Shameless. Did the host take someone's money? I don't want to watch this platform anymore. What professional player? If he lost, he lost. Why does the host have to speak up for him? The host saw that the bombardment was aimed at her and gestured to the director. But this time, the director's reaction was completely different. Through the glass, a large poster was erected. Interview that Spade Z. Hurry up. Such a heated discussion, it must not stop. The host had indeed taken money from the mistress of the Fu family. Now that she was being treated like this, she felt uncomfortable. Who knows if he found someone to play for him or if he used a cheat? Liang Shuguang said coldly, "You know we are doing a live broadcast, but you still came to challenge us. Do you want to be famous? Good publicity." The host pretended to be surprised. A plug-in? That makes sense. I've heard of this Spade Z before. I heard that he swept Zone C as soon as he came out, and he used a new account. Logically speaking, it's impossible for him to complete the first kill mission. There's a high chance that he used external software. Qin Mo had just poured himself a glass of red wine. Before he could sit down with the cork in his hand, he saw this conversation. His deep eyes gradually turned cold. He could take care of his younger brother. Since when was it someone else's turn to interrupt? Moreover, he knew that guy's hand speed better than anyone else. Cheat code? Who was he trying to humiliate? Did he think his brother was the same as these idiots? Qin Mo raised his head and took a sip of red wine. He freed one hand and leaned over, typing a few words on the keyboard. "Since you guys are so doubtful, have a round with me. I won't bring any equipment either." Such a cold sentence was sent out. All of a sudden, the live broadcast screen was stuck for a few tenths of a second. Even Fu Jiu felt that moment of pause. She had clearly released her authority, but at that moment, no one spoke. It was as if the whole world had fallen silent. Right after that. Chapter 96. Almighty, Almighty Qin. It's really Almighty Qin. Almighty Qin's letter of challenge. Holy *T. This is not a dream. I can watch Almighty Qin play live again. I want to see his hands. The internet cafe where Fu Jiu was also affected. The players watching the big screen were all petrified the moment Qin Mo appeared. Then, they all screamed excitedly. The whole internet cafe was bustling as if it was New Year's Eve. Except for Fu Jiao, who was still sitting in front of her computer, all the other computers were empty. Everyone was looking at the TV screen with shining eyes, yelling for the boss to turn up the volume. Qin Mo, Qin Mo, Qin Mo. Just looking at those two words was enough to make one's blood boil. Except for the annual All-Stars live broadcast, Almighty Qin would appear on the live broadcast platform. Today, he actually came. The audience were just onlookers after all, and the one who was really scared was Liang Xuguang. Almighty Qin sent that sentence for him to see. How could his skills be better than Almighty Qin's? He might even die more miserably than before. The host was also shocked when she saw the name of the game, and then women's thoughts started to run wild. She didn't play games, but in Jiang City, there was no woman who didn't want to be close to young Master Qin. The host was lost in thought, thinking about how to talk to young Master Qin later. Finally, the director backstage couldn't help it anymore. He walked over, pulled the host back, and raised the microphone. I think the audience is in the same mood as me. You all want Almighty Qin to make a move, right? The director said what everyone was thinking. Now, they didn't care about Liang Xuguang anymore. They just hoped that Almighty Qin would turn on the camera. The number of views on the live broadcast platform instantly reached 10 million, and many media outlets started to enter. The agents of other clubs even called the players at this time. Go on the live broadcast. Qin Mo wants to PK. You guys watch. Rather than asking them to watch, it was better to ask them to learn. Almighty Qin never PK unless he led his team to fight in a competition. This was a rare opportunity in 100 years. At the same time, Feng Yi, who was still talking about his next sponsorship, received the news. He put down his glass and looked at the CEO of his partner seriously. Do you have XX live broadcast software on your phone? Almighty, young Master Qin, my ancestor. Do you know how much your endorsement fee is? He just casually appeared on the live streaming platform. Secretary Liang didn't dare to look at his CEO's face anymore. To be honest, who would go on a live broadcast to pick a fight over a younger brother? Young Master Qin was definitely the first in history. He was too protective. No, he couldn't let his imagination run wild. The CEO is straight. It was just that he grew up alone. Now that he had a younger brother, he more or less had the tendency of a younger brother complex. That's right, it's a sibling complex. Qin Mo didn't care about the impact he had caused. He had always been known for being domineering and aloof. He just raised his eyebrows and typed 5 words. Are you going to fight or not? There wasn't even a punctuation mark, and his tone was so cold that it could freeze people to death. Liang Xuguang sat in front of the computer. Even though the heat in the broadcasting room was turned on, he still couldn't help but tremble. Meeting Almighty Qin as soon as he debuted would only cause him to be one-sidedly destroyed. At that time, people would only remember his cowardly appearance, and no one would like him anymore. Chapter 97. Liang Xuguang desperately wanted to retreat, but the director pressed his shoulder hard. Of course, Xuguang, it's your honor to have Almighty Qin guiding you. What honor? How could it be an honor? If he really fought with Almighty Qin, he would never be able to get rid of the word ugly in his career. Director Li I. Liang Xuguang still wanted to say something, but the director cut him off and whispered in his ear, if you don't fight this time, don't ever think about fighting again. The intention of the threat was obvious. The platform looked at the traffic benefits. If he didn't fight and Almighty Qin didn't make a move, how could the ratings soar? What? Do you really think you're a god? Your boss didn't poach you to make you lose money. Continue broadcasting, and you'll be rewarded later. Liang Xuguang finally understood that after entering the new company, he could no longer do whatever he wanted like before. In the eyes of the new boss, players like them were just chess pieces. These people wouldn't consider his future, they only cared about the benefits in front of them. Liang Xuguang sat back down with a defeated face. After logging into the game, he saw the godlike character in front of him. He clenched his teeth and wanted to make his last resistance. However, Almighty Qin's attack wasn't as fierce as Spade Z's. Instead, He froze his body so that he couldn't even move. He let him bleed bit by bit. Liang Shuguang thought that it would only take him a few seconds to lose face. But Almighty Qin seemed to be playing with him, making him embarrassed for 3 whole minutes. In these 3 minutes, he was as ugly as he could get. The laughter coming from the screen was so piercing. In the end, Liang Shuguang couldn't take it anymore. He took off his headphones and threw them on the table. This way of dying was even more pathetic than before. After all, the Qin family was a warlord. No matter how handsome and elegant Qin Mo was, he was ruthless in his attacks. After killing him, CEO Qin typed a line of words with a calm expression. "Look at how slow my movements are. Do I look like I'm using a cheat?" That was a slap in the face. Liang Shuguang's expression froze, and he had to smile along with the director. Many of Almighty Qin's fans heard their idol's words. Don't play if you don't know how to play. You accuse others of cheating when you get insta-killed. Do you think such a player is fit to be a professional player? He's indeed unworthy. This time, it was someone from another team who spoke up. The name of the great god was clearly hanging there. From this, it could be seen how many pro players were online on the streaming platform. The preview traffic had reached an unprecedented peak. The broadcasting director asked someone to switch the picture to the screen, and the excitement in his eyes was so obvious. Liang Shuguang felt extremely embarrassed and wanted to get up and leave. What he didn't expect was that this wasn't the end. A clear and mischievous voice came through the microphone, with the unique chuckle of a teenager. "What? You want to leave? Liang Shuguang, do you think that I will let you go at this point? What did you say just now? You came from the countryside and like to be noisy, right? When you said this, you seem to have forgotten that you also came from the countryside. Back then, you were so poor that you could only eat instant noodles in the internet cafe. It was the boss that you looked down on the most who recruited you into the company. He took care of your food and accommodation. When you didn't have any talent, he treated you well." Chapter 98. As soon as Fu Jiu said that, the live broadcast platform went into an uproar immediately. Even the staff next to him looked at Liang Shuguang in surprise. It seemed that no one expected the inside story to be like this. Liang Shuguang didn't have the face to look at the camera anymore. He tried his best to cover his face with his hands. However, Fu Jiu's voice didn't stop. She just sat in the noisy crowd with her legs slightly crossed, like a king in control of the whole scene. Under her silver hair was a thin half-smile. While everyone was staring at the big screen and watching the live broadcast, no one knew that in the corner of the internet cafe, a handsome young man wearing black headphones was moving his hands and playing with the whole world. "Now you know how to be embarrassed? Didn't you just laugh at He Honghua's company for not being good at training people? Liang Shuguang, Zhang Yingchao, and Nye Su, I can tell you now that I am a player under He Corporation. How can it be enough to beat you up just once? Go back and tell your boss that I will slap all her students' faces until they are swollen in the selection contest." As Fu Jiu's voice fell, the live broadcast platform's traffic broke 100 million. It turned out that this wasn't a PK between ordinary fans, but a declaration of war between two teams. The media smelled the scent of gossip, and they swarmed in like a tide. Countless people on the screen asked, "Which company is He Corporation?" Some people were shocked, because anyone who had heard of He Corporation knew that it was a company that was about to go bankrupt. Spade Z, who swept Zone C as soon as he debuted, won 29 matches, and defeated a professional player in just 18 seconds, turned out to be a signed student of this company. They thought a lot about Spade Z's background, but no one expected that this mysterious master actually came from this company. That night, He Honghua's phone exploded with calls from investors. She didn't know what was going on, but she heard the people on the other end shouting fiercely, "Boss He, why didn't you tell me earlier that our company had such a player? Spade Z, if you had told me earlier, would I have withdrawn my investment? I will tear up the contract, and we will continue to work together. This time, I will invest another 500,000, okay?" He Honghua looked at her phone in a daze. She still couldn't believe that the investors who had been forcing her to pay back the money wanted to increase their investment. And they even called her boss He? This was even rarer than a pie falling from the sky. He Honghua's first reaction was that he must be a swindler. How could there be such a good thing in the world? He must be thinking of a way to take away the last bit of money she had left. But the first call was fine. Then, she received a total of 8 phone calls. 5 of them were from investors, and the other 3 were from the most famous local media in Jiang City. They wanted to interview their company's player, whose game name was Spade Z. She had heard of this Spade Z, the almighty who swept through Zone C. But their company didn't have a player named Spade Z. The media even asked her to send a photo to them so that it would be good for their publicity. The key was that she really didn't have such a person on her side. He Honghua was confused. Chapter 99. He Honghua didn't know how to read, let alone how to open the link. In the end, Chen Xiaodong came over, and the 2 of them looked at the computer together. They took the video and watched it from beginning to end. When Chen Xiaodong heard the last part, he couldn't even sit still anymore. He stood up and yelled, "That was so F***ing satisfying. Madam, now the whole country knows what kind of people these 3 are, and no one will support them in the future. They deserve to terminate the contract with us." Spade Z. He Honghua vaguely felt that the voice sounded familiar, but she couldn't remember where she had heard it before. "Why did he help me?" Chen Xiaodong laughed. "He must have helped you because he saw injustice. Madam, you don't know that these online masters love to turn things around. But we don't have such a person in our company. How am I going to explain when the media calls?" He Honghua was a boss after all, so she had to think more than others. Chen Xiaodong was also troubled. In fact, he didn't understand why Spade Z still said that he was from their company when everything was over. If their company had such a god, Madam wouldn't have to worry to this extent. Just as he was thinking about this, the door was pushed open. The young man had a skateboard under his left arm, and his right hand was fiddling with his wet hair. His whole body was covered with the smell of rain, and his handsome face was revealed. "Mom, why did you come back so early today?" He Honghua was happy to see her daughter now. She held Fujio's hand and said, "Joe, our company is saved." Fujio already knew what was going on. She wouldn't make a move if it wasn't for her own benefit. She only curled up her thin lips and smiled evilly. "Did those investors call you to increase their stakes?" He Honghua was happy, and her voice became louder. "Not only the investors, even the media called to promote our company." "Wait, how did you know that the investors wanted to increase their stakes?" "Of course I'll pay attention to Mom." Fujio freed one hand to grab He Honghua's huge waist and brought her to the sofa. Hearing this, He Honghua was so touched that she didn't think about the whole thing. Her rough hands couldn't bear to let go of her daughter. "Joe, when Mom makes money this time, I'll hand over the company to you. Those things aren't hard to do. Don't worry, Mom will watch you from the side and won't let others laugh at you." "With Mom here, of course I'm not worried." Fujio chuckled and put her arm around the old lady's shoulder. "Let's talk about the media first. How are they going to promote the company?" He Honghua didn't realize that her daughter was trying to get information out of her. She tugged at her curly hair in annoyance. "They said they wanted to interview a gaming god called Spade Z, but we don't have such a person in our company. We can't just make someone appear out of thin air." Fujio smiled, looking a little flirtatious. "Mom is right. You didn't let it get to your head." The unexpected compliment made He Honghua blush. How could their daughter be so handsome? Chapter 100. He Honghua's eyes lit up when she heard that. "Joe, how did you come up with this gimmick? Our company can make a lot of money this way." Fujio didn't say anything and just smiled faintly. Soon, He Honghua thought of something and frowned again. "But we don't have Spade Z in our company. We can't lie to people like this, right?" "Mom, how can this be a lie?" Fujio patted He Honghua's shoulder and said in a low voice, "I watched the live broadcast today. Since Spade Z said that he belongs to our company, then he will definitely appear in the gaming contest. Otherwise, his reputation will be ruined. So don't worry about this. He will definitely appear, and you can deal with the media boldly." When He Honghua heard her daughter's suggestion, she skipped over to return the call to her friend from the media. Chen Xiaodong looked at his young master's electrifying eyes and said seriously, "Young master, why do I feel that you were intentionally flirting with madam? What are you trying to hide?" "Xiaodong." Fu Jiu stretched out her arm and put it on her little boy servant's shoulder. "Haven't you realized this after watching so many movies? The more you know, the faster you die. I've been playing games all night, and I'm tired. Go make me a sandwich and pour me a glass of wine, and I'll consider not killing you." Chen Xiaodong's hair stood up when his young master put him on the shoulder. "I'll go now." Young master, don't try to turn me gay." "Turn him gay?" Fu Jiu raised her pretty eyebrows and thought that even if she wanted to turn him gay, she would find almighty Qin. Why would she find a little kid? Fu Jiu blew the hair on her forehead and took out her phone that was vibrating. It was a WeChat message from Qin Mo. A few short words with the same cold tone. "It's raining outside. Don't hang out at the internet cafe if you have nothing to do." Fu Jiu wiped her hair with a towel and looked at He Honghua, who was on the phone. If her mother knew that she had found such a godson for her, how would she react? "Brother Mo, I'm home." After saying that, in order to prove that she wasn't lying, Fu Jiu took a selfie and sent it over. Qin Mo looked at the youngster's face, which was still dripping with water. It was unbelievably tender, as though even the hair on her face was sticking to it. Her beautiful and exquisite collarbone was revealed. Qin Mo's fingers paused. He placed his phone down and stared at the traffic outside the floor-to-ceiling window. After a few seconds of silence, he picked up the phone again. His tone was firm and commanding. "I told you, don't send me such pictures again. Go to sleep now. I'll pick you up from school tomorrow." Fu Jiu was confused again. What was wrong with her picture? Isn't it quite clear? No one could guess the Almighty's thoughts. However, there was one thing that had to be put on the agenda. Since she had already announced that she was going to make San suffer in the esports competition, she had to recruit enough people. Fu Jiu rested her chin on her fingers and suddenly smiled. "Let's go to the game during class tomorrow. We can use the parts that the Almighty bought tonight." When He Honghua came back from the phone call, her daughter was gone. Only the red wine was gone, and Chen Xiaodong's sandwich was still in the same place. "Where's Joe?" she asked. Chapter 101. The next day, Fu Jiu yawned and went to school. She spent the whole night assembling her laptop, and her shoulders were almost broken. This time, she didn't skateboard. She took the bus, and it was 2 stops away. Along the way, she saw many girls in the same school uniform taking pictures of her. Fu Jiu smiled at them with a lollipop in her mouth. When someone leaned over, she held the girl's hand like a gentleman. When she got off the bus, all the girls blushed and followed Fu Jiu excitedly. Only when the young man entered the classroom did they let out a long sigh of regret. However, the classroom wasn't as pleasant. As soon as Fu Jiu stepped in, she saw a mess on the floor. Shui Yaoyao was squatting on the floor. Her long hair hung down and covered her face, but it wasn't hard to see how depressed she was. Even when her fingers touched the textbook, she slightly tightened her grip. "Damn fatty. You should know your place when you're so ugly. Stay away from me," the boy said as he kicked the book in Shui Yaoyao's hand. "Still picking it up? Let me tell you, I've been tolerating you fat pig for long enough. If you still want to stay in class, go tell the homeroom teacher and ask him to change your desk." "What the hell is this? Poor and ugly, it's an insult to my eyes." Shui Yaoyao's fingers tightened again, and the force almost sank into her palm. Fu Jiu knew that she was holding it in because she couldn't cry. Once she cried, she would lose completely. A group of people were watching the show, especially some girls who were covering their faint smiles, and their picky eyes swept over Shui Yaoyao's body again and again. "You're right. If she's expelled from school, she shouldn't come back." Although she was wrongly accused of being a thief, it's true that her family is poor. Also, the weather is cold, and she doesn't change her clothes. She only has one set of school uniform, and she doesn't even wash it. Her long hair smells like vegetables. Does she not even take a shower? Stop talking. It's disgusting. Mocking laughter was always more painful than punches. Shui Yaoyao's head hung even lower, almost to the point where it was buried in the ground. The boy standing next to her wanted to kick again, but he was kicked to the side. There was a loud bang. Before the boy could cry out in pain, Fu Jiu reached out and pulled Shui Yaoyao into her arms. She held the back of Shui Yaoyao's head with her left hand and pressed it into her own chest. She grabbed his uniform with her right hand and smiled evilly. A man who hits a woman is worse than a piece of trash. You can either shut up now, or come with me to the sports field at the back. Let's see whose fist is harder. Fu Jiu's kick just now had already made him unable to stand, and with the way this person was looking at him, the boy only felt goosebumps all over his body, and he took a step back submissively. Fu Jiu raised her eyebrows and let go of his collar. She turned sideways and hooked her black school bag back. Her school uniform was half unbuttoned, and she said faintly, "You don't want to be next to Shui Yaoyao, do you?" The boy opened his mouth with a pale face. Who would like to be next to such a woman? He didn't dare to call her fat pig anymore. He was afraid that Fu Jiu would kick him to death again. Why didn't he realize that this gay was so fierce when he fought? Chapter 102. Everyone in the classroom was shocked when they saw Fu Jiu hugging Shui Yaoyao. Some of the girls had their eyes wide open as they looked at this scene in disbelief. Shui Yaoyao herself froze from the beginning. She wanted to say thank you, but she was afraid that if she opened her mouth, she wouldn't be able to stop crying. But Fu Jiu acted like nothing had happened. She sat down on the chair, put her left hand on Shui Yaoyao's back casually, and smiled lightly. The buns from last time were delicious. Do you have any more today? Shui Yaoyao didn't say anything. She nodded and shook her head. She looked down, and big drops of tears fell onto the textbook one after another. She didn't understand why she didn't cry when she was bullied like that. But the youngster's most ordinary greeting could make her cry uncontrollably. Shui Yaoyao thought that maybe the hug just now was too warm, so warm that she could turn a blind eye to the humiliation. No more. Fu Jiu touched her belly regretfully. Then she moved her left hand, and a lollipop appeared in front of Shui Yaoyao. She had a smile on her face. Take it, girls need to eat sweets. The surrounding students looked at the interaction between the two with envy and jealousy. The prettiest girl in the class couldn't figure out what was so good about that fat pig that Fu Jiu would treat him like this. Is Fu Jiu really in love with that fat pig? Not necessarily. Didn't they say that Fu Jiu is gay? Look at his attitude towards girls. Does he look like a gay? He is obviously straight. But he liked handsome Jiang and said that he wanted to keep almighty Qin. How do you explain that? I don't care. Anyway, my Highness Jiu is straight now. In order to protect Fu Jiu's reputation, the school had set up a small group of fans. They affectionately called Fu Jiu Highness Jiu. Because every time their highness appeared, that evil look, that attitude of oppressing scumbags, that bright and translucent eyes, that calm demeanor in front of the media, was very much like the ancient princes who held great power. As a result, the phrase His Highness the Ninth quickly appeared. Perhaps it was because birds of a feather flocked together, but everyone who liked Fu Jiu had very good values. For example, they had long wanted to stand up for what happened today, but their individual power was limited. Plus, that boy was not someone to be messed with in school, and he had connections with people outside the school. Just when the three of them were hesitating whether to stand up for him or not, they saw His Highness Jiu kick him. That action was extremely cool, and the kick was really satisfying. From that moment on, they decided that regardless of whether His Highness Jiu was straight or gay, they would protect this young man. Fu Jiu had no idea that she had gained 3 fans because of her actions. After assembling her laptop for a whole day yesterday, she just wanted to lie on her desk and sleep. It could be said that Fu Jiu slept through the first 2 classes. With Shui Yaoyao covering for her, the teacher didn't notice. Jiang Feiyong, who was sitting on the other side, was a little absent-minded. He always wanted to look forward in the morning. He never thought that the weakling who once said that he liked him would actually be willing to not be his deskmate anymore. Chapter 103. When Fu Jiu woke up again, it was already the 3rd period between classes. She didn't know what Jiang Feiyong was thinking, but he actually walked to her side, knocked on her desk, and asked in a low voice, "Are you really going to sit here?" Fu Jiu looked at him with interest, and her left hand supported her chin lazily. Her gaze made Zhang Feiyang sober up immediately. What was he doing? Was he trying to make this little weakling go back? He was crazy. But young Master Jiang still bit the bullet and said, "Actually, you don't have to do this. The teacher will rearrange the seats next Monday, and let Shui Yaoyao sit with the girls. I think it's not bad here." Fu Jiu smiled. At least I don't have to worry about being reported in class. Zhang Feiyang knew that he was talking about him, and his face turned pale. He felt that this little weakling was completely unreasonable. He had already given him a way out, but he didn't want to. "Do whatever you want." Zhang Feiyang threw down this sentence and went back to his seat. His eyes were still filled with anger, and the girls who liked him didn't understand what was wrong with him. Shui Yaoyao also raised her head. Will I be a bad influence on you?" "Influence?" Fu Jiu took out the modified English textbook from the desk and curled up her lips. "I'm the last student, so why should I be afraid of being influenced? You are better at studying than me, especially in physics. Is that really for humans to learn?" This wasn't the first time Fu Jiu complained about physics, and it was obvious how much she hated this subject. Shui Yaoyao looked at the silver-haired young man sitting next to her with thin lips. Because he had just woken up, there were still a few strands of hair on top of his head. They were messy and a bit casual, as if they could grow a pair of ears. He was so handsome that it made people think that he was shamelessly cute. Shui Yaoyao had never been as happy as she was now. Shui Yaoyao really liked Fu Jiu, and it wasn't the kind of love between a man and a woman. She knew that she didn't deserve the young man with her looks, and she wanted to repay him from the bottom of her heart. Even if he didn't need it, she wanted to make the young man feel comfortable. "In the future, if you have any questions about physics, I can." Before Shui Yaoyao could finish, the phone next to Fu Jiu's hand rang. It wasn't a ringtone, but a vibration. No matter what, the school didn't allow students to bring their mobile phones, but rules were rules. Not many people would not bring their mobile phones. Fu Jiu gestured for him to wait for a moment and then swiped the screen open. It was a WeChat message from Qin Mo. His voice was cold and indifferent, and he sounded like an abstinent CEO. "I'll be near school at noon. Come out, I'll take you out for lunch." "Socializing? I'm not going. I'll take a stroll in the game later. Brother Mo. I'm really still a student." Fu Jiu always felt that going to school wasn't that important in Almighty Qin's eyes. How could a straight-A student like him, who was guaranteed a spot in a prestigious university before even graduating, understand the pain of being a slacker? Sigh, Qin Mo paused for a moment, then used the tone of an older brother to remind her again, "Pay attention in class." Fu Jiu laughed when she heard that. She tilted her head and sent a voice message over. "Don't worry, I'm usually very well behaved. My new deskmate is planning to tutor me in the future. Go ahead. See you after school." He thought that this matter was over. After all, there had been no news from the other side for a few minutes. Just when Fu Jiu was planning to dig out more members of the team, her phone vibrated again. "So your grades are so bad that you need to tutor to reach the standard." Fu Jiu. Chapter 104. The main thing was that after saying this, Boss Qin didn't have any intention of restraining himself. Then he added, "What rank did you get last time?" Fu Jiu's fingers paused. She really didn't want to answer this question, because it was a huge blow to her. She almost suspected that the Almighty said that on purpose. With the Almighty's black-bellied personality, it was very possible. She really couldn't reply to such a man. Fu Jiu decisively put her phone in the desk. Not long after, he was shocked again. "There are more than 50 people in your class. You should be in the top 40, right?" Fu Jiu still didn't say anything. She was sure that the Almighty did it on purpose. Top 45? Fu Jiu's handsome face fell even more. When he felt that it was about time, the man slowly replied, "Don't tell me you're in the last 3. Instead of being tortured by the Almighty again and again, she might as well admit it herself. Fu Jiu sent 2 words over gloomily. Full 1. Qin Mo's beautiful tone was raised with an obvious smile. "So that's how it is. Fu Jiu. What else could it be? Almighty, you asked so many questions because you already knew that I was a slacker." 11:05 p.m. In a 5-star hotel, the table was full of dishes. It was a bit early for ordinary people to eat, but not for business. Chatting with the young man while the dishes were being served really increased one's appetite. China Mo looked at the ellipses on the screen, and the young man's depressed face appeared in his mind again. He couldn't help but smile. Secretary Liang stood beside him and saw his CEO's sudden smile. He couldn't help but shiver. When did CEO Qin ever smile during a business meeting? And CEO Qin didn't have the habit of holding his phone. He secretly nodded and saw Fu Jiu's name on the screen. At this moment, Secretary Liang's heart was in a mess. A mess that couldn't be described. The person who came for business was also from an aristocratic family, but he was more than 10 years older than Qin Mo. Seeing him smile, he raised his eyebrows. When they were almost done with the project, Qin Mo asked indifferently, "I heard that CEO Xiao has a brother who is in high school." CEO Xiao was stunned. It seemed that he didn't expect the powerful young Master Qin to talk about such private matters. He smiled and said, "Yes, I do have a brother." "How is his study?" Qin Mo picked up the glass of red wine and took a sip. His handsome face didn't change at all, as if he was just having a casual chat. CEO Xiao smiled bitterly. "To be honest, it's not good. I have to attend a parent-teacher conference on his behalf tomorrow." Parent-teacher meeting. Qin Mo repeated these 3 words, a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes deepened. No one knew what he was thinking. President Xiao continued, "But I can't blame him. Even I can't understand the current high school textbooks. Those questions are too difficult. I'm planning to find a private tutor to tutor him." Qin Mo didn't reply. President Xiao thought that he was unhappy, but he knew when to stop. "Look at me, I talk a lot when I talk about my brother. It's nothing. I have a younger brother too. I understand that feeling." Qin Mo's expression was still calm. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit, looking noble and luxurious. What he said almost made Secretary Liang spit out the red wine in his mouth. "CEO Qin, CEO Zhao's son is his biological brother, but yours isn't." Chapter 105. After Fu Jiu sent the last ellipsis, she turned on her phone's hotspot and put up her English textbook. Everyone thought that she was reading a book, including the teacher in class. Only Shui Yaoyao, who was sitting next to her, knew that she wasn't reading a book, but a small notebook. She looked at the exquisite little book of the knife and axe divine skill and covered her mouth in shock. She was afraid that she would scream and expose Fu Jiu's secret to the teacher. Who would have thought that what was supposed to be an English textbook would turn out to be a computer? How did he do it? Shui Yaoyao looked at the young man's perfect side profile. She wasn't stupid. She knew that this kind of notebook couldn't be bought, and it didn't even have a logo on it. Anyone with basic computer science would know that this was a top-notch notebook. Why did he have a notebook like this? He was just an ordinary young man. He used to be an arrogant and despotic nouveau riche. Was all this just a disguise? Shui Yaoyao looked at that pair of slender hands moving beautifully on the keyboard. She also played games, so she knew that the more powerful a person was, the more silent his typing was. And, when the young man was typing, he didn't look down at all. He supported his chin with one hand and looked at the podium with his beautiful eyes, as if he wasn't typing, but listening to the class. How powerful must he be to be able to do this? Shui Yaoyao clenched her fists, and an indescribable excitement flowed through her blood. As a poor person, she knew that Director Zhang's incident wasn't something that could be exposed so easily. She knew how deep Director Zhang's connections were in the school. How did such a private message come about? Who could have triggered such a powerful network effect in just one night? There must be someone behind all of this. Perhaps Chief Zhang would hate this pusher. But as the victims, they could go back to school and clear her name as a thief, all because of this person. That was the hero she wanted to thank the most. More and more voices were distorted because they didn't have enough connections or money. But at that time, Shui Yaoyao saw a lot of hope. She had been wondering who that person was, and even the police had no clue. Now, she finally knew who that person was. It turned out that he was sitting right next to her, protecting her time and time again. Shui Yaoyao put down her trembling right hand, grabbed the carbon pen, and wrote a note. Because she was too excited, Her beautiful handwriting was a little crooked. "You're the one who did Director Zhang, aren't you?" Fu Jiu was still multitasking as she searched for team members in the game. The English textbook shell in her hand was the result of her staying up all night last night. She had ordered the shell online, and it took a lot of effort to install and run it. A piece of paper suddenly appeared in front of her. The words on the paper were blurred by her tears, but they were even clearer. Fu Jiu paused and turned to look at Shui Yaoyao. Seeing this, Shui Yaoyao tore another piece of paper and quickly wrote, "I don't have any other intentions and I won't tell anyone. I just want to." Chapter 106. When Shui Yaoyao saw that word again, she suddenly froze. Guessing was one thing, but confirming it was another. She suddenly remembered that day when the young man faced countless media with determination, as if he was wearing armor, and said with bright eyes, "Because we all believe that justice may be late, but it will never be absent." So that was it. So that was how it had always been. Shui Yaoyao covered her mouth with reddened eyes. She wanted to cry, but not because she was sad, but because she was very happy. She was poor and ugly, and she had a lot of fat on her body. She had been bullied a lot in school. Some of them weren't even bullying, but just a look of disdain or a sneer, but it was enough to destroy a person's heart. Shui Yaoyao was glad that she could meet such a person. He had a face and a heart that was more handsome than anyone else. Even the way he looked at her was full of warmth. "I won't tell anyone." Not only would she not tell anyone, but she would also keep it a secret for the young man. Fu Jiu smiled and wrote 3 words over. "I know." Shui Yaoyao paused and wrote another sentence. "I saw that you were looking for someone in the game just now. I know how to play hero too. Do you want me to help you?" Fu Jiu's eyes lit up when she heard that Shui Yaoyao was playing hero. She didn't ask her how good she was, but directly handed her notebook over. It was Shui Yaoyao's first time playing games in class. After she got over the mental burden, she was able to play the game smoothly. The small laptop was surprisingly easy to use. She didn't pause at all on the keyboard, and the graphics were smooth. It was even faster than some high-end computers. In fact, Shui Yaoyao didn't use high-end computers because she was too fat. Other than games, she didn't have any other entertainment options. Speaking of which, it was sad. Another reason was that she could afford such a pastime. She could only spend 6 yuan on a computer in an internet cafe for 3 hours. It wasn't even enough to buy a cup of Starbucks for other students. Therefore, Shui Yaoyao wasn't weak. In fact, she was even more skilled than the average player. Fu Jiu watched from the side, and her beautiful eyebrows raised a little. Before she could finish typing, she wrote a string of words on the note. "I have a job here that pays well. Are you interested in helping me?" Shui Yaoyao didn't even ask what the job was. She immediately wrote, "I'm willing." After answering, she realized that she had been too enthusiastic. She was afraid that Fu Jiu would hate her, so she retracted her hand. "Let's talk about work. I play games every day, and I use my spare time. I saw your operation just now, but it's still a little flawed. We'll talk about it later. Anyway, our goal is to dominate this year's esports selection contest, so you have to plan your studies well. Don't fail when the time comes, and you won't be able to qualify for the contest." Shui Yaoyao looked at the 3 words fail, and coughed lightly. Then she wrote back, "Actually, Your Highness Jiu, don't you think you should pay more attention to your studies?" Chapter 107. This was indeed something she should pay attention to. Fu Jiu raised her hand and pushed back the silver hair on her forehead. "Don't worry, I'll only fail physics this time." Shui Yaoyao reminded the young man, "Failing physics is still a failure. In order to prevent young people from being too addicted to games, the rule of the esports selection contest is that you have to pass every subject." Fu Jiu paused. "The rules are like this? Don't you just need to pass?" "No." Because Shui Yaoyao was a fan of League of Legends, she more or less paid attention to the rules of esports competitions. "Your Highness Jiu, you have to work hard." At this moment, Fu Jiu realized that what she needed to do the most was not to buy a paperback, but to take out her physics textbook and play with it dozens of times. The key was that she had no interest in physics. Should I hire a tutor? Shui Yao Yao wrote on the note. Fu Jiu looked at that line of words and suddenly felt a little melancholy. But it was still good to find a team member, so she casually wrote, "Tell me your phone number." Shui Yao Yao blushed. Just as she replied in a low voice, "I don't have a phone." The English teacher suddenly appeared beside her. Fu Jiu reacted quickly. She pulled her left hand back and replaced the notebook with a real English textbook. She also swept the other notes to the side. Only the one he had just written was caught by the English teacher. The English teacher looked at the words on the note and frowned. She asked Shui Yao Yao, "What's going on?" Shui Yao Yao clenched her fists and was about to speak. She heard the young man chuckle in her ear. "Teacher Chen, I wrote this note to her." The English teacher didn't expect that Fu Jiu would ask for Shui Yao Yao's phone number. She didn't know what to say, so she pushed up her glasses. "Ahem, Fu Jiu, pay attention in class. You've made a lot of progress recently. You're a good seedling. Since you're still a student, you should put more effort into your studies. Don't mistake your affection for Shui Yao Yao as affection." This sentence contained too much information, and all the students in the class looked at Fu Jiu in shock. What does that mean? Fu Jiu confessed to Shui Yao Yao? Isn't this a little too incompatible? Could it be that Fu Jiu liked that kind of guy? Some girls couldn't accept it, and Jiang Feiyong clenched his fists even tighter. He really couldn't think of what Fu Jiu liked about that girl. It would have been fine if she was pretty, but it just had to be like that. Shui Yao Yao wanted to explain, but Fu Jiu winked at her with her left eye, looking devilishly handsome. She knew that the youth allowed everyone to misunderstand him in order to protect her. After all, if others found out that she was the one who took the initiative to pass notes, she would only suffer more rumors and slanders in school. She and the young man were people from two different worlds. Shui Yao Yao had always known this, so she didn't dare to ask for anything. Just like her and that person, even though she was now his stepsister, they were still worlds apart in school. With the English teacher's warning, Fu Jiu didn't log into the game again. She thought of something and took out her phone to send Qin Mo a WeChat message. "Brother Mo, can I bring a classmate to play tennis today?" No matter how domineering she was, Fu Jiu still had manners in her bones. Since the other party was taking her there were some things she had to ask in advance. Qin Mo replied faintly, "Sure." Chapter 108. Shui Yao Yao didn't agree to her idol's invitation at first. To be honest, she had never played tennis in a professional tennis court before, and the expenses there were probably not low. Plus, she didn't have a good figure, so she would be treated as an anomaly in such an occasion. The young man probably saw through her concerns, so he added with a light smile, "Don't worry, I won't let you play on the court. You just need to hold my computer and play by the side. The main thing is that I can correct your small flaws in the game." It turned out that the young man already knew that she didn't have a cell phone. But he was so gentle that he didn't say anything. Even after school, the young man walked beside her with a black school bag on one shoulder. He still looked so handsome. It was drizzling outside. Fu Jiu didn't take an umbrella. After her silver hair was wet, her face looked even more handsome and delicate. And the black earring on her ear, coupled with her faint smile, was really a weapon to instantly seduce girls. "Fu Jiu, can you wait?" Suddenly, a girl stood in front of Fu Jiu with a blushing face. She was pushed by two friends behind her, and her cheeks were a little hot. "There's a new movie that's playing today. Can I go watch it with you?" Fu Jiu smiled and said, "I'm busy today, sorry." It was not a good feeling to be rejected. Even though she knew that the other party might not accept, but that girl still lowered her head, and her hand that was holding the movie tickets trembled a little. Then go do what you need to do." Fu Jiu looked at her white fingertips, raised her left hand, and tucked her long hair behind her ear. She smiled slightly. "It's raining today, so it's better to go back early. Don't catch a cold." Instantly, the three girls were boiling with excitement. The girl whose hair had been pinned felt an unprecedented warmth. This was their Highness Jiu. Even when he was rejecting someone, he did it so gently. When Qin Mo rolled down the window, he saw such a scene. He was still sitting in the back of the car with his legs crossed. On top of him was a business tablet, and it looked like he had just finished a video conference. He originally wanted to light a cigarette. His left hand was still playing with the limited edition silver lighter, but after glancing at the youth outside the car, he paused slightly. His deep eyes sank, and even his eyes were filled with a lot of cold air. President Qin, do we need to drive a little further? The driver thought it was his problem, so he asked cautiously. Qin Mo put the lighter away with a smack, pushed open the car door, and walked towards the youngster after saying, "No need." The autumn rain in the north was usually very cold, so Qin Mo was dressed differently today. He was wearing a black double-breasted windbreaker over a well-ironed suit, and there was a circle of pure white fox fur around the collar of the windbreaker. He looked domineering and noble in every way. His handsome and flawless face attracted countless gazes in just a few seconds. But before people could call out his name, he reached out and grabbed the back of the youngster's uniform collar. He smiled coldly. "Have you forgotten what I told you?" Chapter 109. Wronged. Qin Mo arched a brow as he looked at the youngster in front of him. That face was obviously very likable, but it was too cunning. He tapped his right hand with his finger. "Didn't you pluck someone's hair with this claw just now?" Fujio was still smiling. Raindrops slid down her silver hair and landed on her face. "That's not flirting." Qin Mo glanced at him, took the black umbrella that the driver had opened for him, and held it over the youngster's head. He ignored the shrill screams around them and said faintly, "Get in the car first." Fujio knew that his anger had subsided. She glanced sideways at Shui Yaoyao, opened the back door, and gestured for her to get in. Qin Mo frowned. "Is this the person you sent a WeChat message to bring to the stadium?" "Yes." Fujio pushed Shui Yaoyao's back. Shui Yaoyao, on the other hand, felt an unprecedented pressure. His Highness Jiao had never said that the person he wanted to play tennis with was Almighty Qin. Moreover, although Almighty Qin's gaze towards her wasn't impolite, it was as cold as an icy rain, which could easily make people shiver. "Why don't you go in?" Fujio smiled lightly. "Go in. I told Brother Mo that we can bring people in." Shui Yaoyao swallowed her saliva with difficulty. She didn't even dare to imagine how the people around her would look at her when she approached the car. To be honest, the students at the side were shocked speechless. Not to mention that Almighty Qin's appearance was a bit sudden. Just looking at that chubby girl being able to get so close to him and possibly get into Almighty Qin's car, they felt a burst of jealousy and hatred. How many generations of good fortune did that woman accumulate? Shui Yaoyao's scalp went numb. She hesitated for a long time but still couldn't move her leg. Just as Fujio was about to push him in, someone grabbed her collar again. It was Qin Mo. He had an umbrella in one hand, and the other hand was wearing a black glove. He looked a little like an ancient devil. He grabbed Fujio with the other hand, and his face was handsome and noble. "Don't you know the rules? Let the girls sit in the front, and the two of us sit in the back." Fujio thought to herself, "I'm a woman too." But he wouldn't say it like that. The corner of his mouth curled up, and he opened the door in a gentlemanly manner. Only then did Shui Yaoyao have the courage to step out, mainly because she felt that Almighty Qin's gaze wasn't as cold as before. After the three of them got in the car, the commotion outside was cut off. On a rainy day like this, there would always be towels in the top-end commercial vehicles. Qin Mo casually took a towel and threw it at the youngster's head, freeing one hand to wipe his head with the towel. Shui Yaoyao was stunned when she saw this scene in the rearview mirror. She didn't know how to react and could only sit there stiffly. In fact, the driver's mood was also very complicated. After all, this was the first time he had seen his young master get out of the car on a rainy day. Getting out of the car was one thing, but after getting in the car, the first thing he wiped wasn't his own hand, but another person's head. This doesn't conform to the young master's usual cleanliness. No, that's not right. It should be said that he actually allowed a drenched handsome young man to sit next to him. Wouldn't he usually kick him out of the car? Chapter 110. When Qin Mo heard this, he turned his head, his lips brushing past the youngster's wet hair. His fingers froze, and his lips felt a little itchy. His voice turned cold. "Take the towel and wipe yourself." After saying this, he took the business tablet back to his hand, plugged in his headphones, and had a cold expression on his face as if he was going to continue the meeting. Fu Jiu rubbed her hair, not understanding what was wrong with her brother Mo. His emotions came out of nowhere. She hadn't started flirting yet. But seeing that the Almighty was in a meeting, Fu Jiu didn't disturb him. She kept the towel on her head and didn't take it off. She unwrapped a lollipop and put it in her mouth. Only a minute had passed, and Fu Jiu thought that the Almighty had forgotten about her. Who knew that when she looked up, the man sitting next to her took the towel off her head and frowned. "Aren't you afraid of catching a cold?" Fu Jiu laughed. "So Brother Mo is concerned about me. In front of your classmates, I won't kick you out. If you have time, read more books." One of Qin Mo's ears was still wearing a black earring. He lifted his eyelids faintly, his thin lips forming a faint smile. "At least don't be last." Fu Jiu calmed down at the mention of her results. She held her lollipop in her mouth the whole time and didn't say a word. She didn't even try to play with Qin Mo's hair. CEO Qin was very satisfied with this. He even asked the driver to stop the car and buy some drinks for him and his classmates. After all, he was the younger brother that she recognized. She would slowly correct her bad habit of flirting with others. She had to give her younger brother some face in front of outsiders. This was CEO Qin's most intuitive thought. Especially when he glanced sideways and saw the young man blowing at the steam in the cup with his head lowered. The white steam surged up and touched his silver hair, and he felt that what he did was right. Just like his cat, it would be more obedient if it was given food. Qin Mo crossed his legs and opened the business magazine. His left hand subconsciously caressed the youngster's head, and his thin lips curved up. He seemed to be in a good mood. After Fu Jiu was patted on the head, she tilted her head to look at the Almighty, then turned back and continued to drink. It was indeed comfortable to drink something warm on a rainy day. Shui Yaoyao held the piping hot caramel macchiato in her hands. She knew very well that she had benefited from His Highness Jiu, but she really didn't expect that His Highness Jiu and Almighty Qin would have such a good relationship. Although she saw His Highness Jiu get on Almighty Qin's car last time, not many people knew why he got on, because they were still guessing if Almighty Qin wanted to teach His Highness Jiu a lesson. After all, what Highness Jiu did back then was too. Cough, Almighty Qin probably couldn't stand him. Moreover, the whole school was saying that His Highness Jiu was gay and had a crush on Almighty Qin. But looking at the interaction between the two of them, Highness Jiu wasn't the one who took the initiative. On the contrary, Almighty Qin seemed to treat Highness Jiu very well. No, she shouldn't think like that. Shui Yaoyao shook her head. The relationship between Almighty Qin and Highness Jiu was probably just a friendship between two men. When the driver saw this, his fingers slipped and the cup of coffee he was supposed to pass to his young master fell out of the car. Qin Mo glanced over at them. The driver immediately said, "Young master, I'll go buy another cup." Chapter 111. Fu Jiu, who was called out, raised her head. Her silver hair was slightly curled up, giving off a cat's ear feeling. It was so cute. The driver froze when he heard Qin Mo's words. He even suspected that there was something wrong with his ears. Their family's young master, the young master who had severe mysophobia and looked at everyone as if they were germs, actually said that he wanted to drink the same cup of coffee with someone else. If Madam and Boss knew about this, they would definitely look at young master in surprise. This was not his usual style at all. Fu Jiu raised her eyebrows and curled her lips. She didn't care. "Brother Mo, do you want to drink it now? I just blew on it. It shouldn't be hot anymore." This young man. The driver immediately felt a headache coming on. A normal person shouldn't reply like that, right? Qin Mo didn't say anything. Instead, he held Fu Jiu's hand, turned his head, and pressed his lips directly onto the takeaway cup. His handsome and abstinent side profile looked very handsome in the misty rain, especially since he was wearing a black suit. Fu Jiu's eyes lit up. Fu Jiu was also a natural and energetic pretty boy. Her school uniform's collar brushed past Qin Mo's shoulder, and the scene was very beautiful. Shui Yaoyao felt that the two most handsome men in the world were together. It was a feast for the eyes. But Shui Yaoyao glanced at the rearview mirror, feeling conflicted. Was she the only one who thought that sharing a cup of coffee with him was An indirect kiss? It's a little sweet. When Qin Mo spoke, his breath was very close. Fu Jiu took another sip and licked the water droplets on her lower lip with the tip of her tongue. A little. It must be because of the lollipop I ate just now. It tastes like chocolate. Qin Mo stared at the youngster's face that was inches away from his. Only then did he realize that the distance between them was a little too close. The fluff on the youngster's face was reflected in his eyes once again. Those light-colored lips that were perfect for kissing were moist and tempting. Qin Mo frowned and retracted his gaze. Then, he tilted his head and looked out of the car window with his deep eyes. He raised his eyes and met the driver's gaze. His voice deepened and he spoke in his usual commanding tone. Drive. Yes, young master. The driver also felt that he couldn't stop anymore. This was the first time he saw his young master being so close to someone. Even those in the military compound had never been treated like this by the young master. Of course, Qin Mo knew what the driver was thinking, but he didn't have to tell him. Treating a friend was different from treating a brother. When dealing with his younger brother, he would try his best to give in to him. Even if there were times, Almighty Qin still wanted this guy to stay away from him so that he wouldn't be flirting with him all the time. Fu Jiu blinked and looked at the Almighty's expression. She cupped her chin with her left hand and smiled wickedly. Brother Mo was indeed vulnerable to flirting. But soon, Fu Jiu wasn't that happy anymore. Anyone who had been to a proper tennis court would know that the temperature inside was neither too high nor too low. There would be specialized people who would hand towels and tea to the players. Similarly, players had to change into sportswear and wear knee pads and other professional equipment before the coach would allow them to play. This was also to prevent people from straining their muscles during the game. Wearing knee pads was fine, but going into the men's clothing department to change into sportswear. Fu Jiu, words for the readers. When you're outside, give 7 boys a small theater. Qin Mo sneered. Classmate Shui, don't you think you're redundant? Fu Jiu. Chapter 112. It was really inconvenient for Fu Jiu. With one hand in her pocket, she paused and looked sideways at Shui Yaoyao. Shui Yaoyao actually didn't want to change her clothes, mainly because of her figure. She probably couldn't fit into the clothes here, however. Shui Yaoyao still underestimated the influence of Qin Mo's name in the 3 northeastern provinces. In Jiang City, any business like this would be more or less owned by the Qin Corporation. So here, they were all treated like VIPs. The receptionist standing next to them was very pretty, and she was wearing a professional suit. She said to her, Miss Shui, we have prepared your sportswear. Please come this way. After that, the receptionist bowed to Qin Mo and left with her people. It was Shui Yaoyao's first time in a place like this, so she was a bit reserved, so she didn't notice anything wrong with Fu Jiu. Other than the receptionist, only Fu Jiu and Qin Mo were left in the luxuriously decorated hall. The men's locker room was not far from their left. Fu Jiu was still thinking about what excuse she could use. Qin Mo had already put one arm around her neck and brought her into the room. His left hand didn't forget to grab the sportswear from the receptionist's hands. CEO Qin had a habit of never letting anyone serve him when he entered a place like this. Even if it was just changing clothes, he would let the receptionists wait outside. Even though they were treated like VIPs, there was only one locker room. Fu Jiu looked around as soon as she entered the room. Except for the open cabinet, which served as a little bit of cover, the rest of the place was empty. If she changed her clothes here, her gender would be exposed in less than 3 seconds. In fact, when Qin Mo said he was going to play basketball, Fu Jiu was already prepared for physical contact. Today, she wrapped a circle of bandages around her chest and wore a pure white hurdle vest. But even so, she couldn't strip naked in front of a god, right? Fu Jiu hugged the black sportswear that the man gave her. Her beautiful eyebrows furrowed, and even her eyes darkened. Qin Mo had already given his windbreaker to the receptionist when he came in, so he only had his suit on. He unbuttoned his shirt with one hand and turned his head to look at Fu Jiu. The corner of his mouth curled up, and he couldn't hide his handsome asceticism. What? Do you want me to help you take it off? Fu Jiu knew that the Almighty was picking on her first gay meetup. It seemed like it was impossible to use the same trick again. The current Almighty was fundamentally different from the man she had first met who still knew how to do gay meetup tutorials. The only difference was that he really treated her as his little brother. Still not moving? With a tug of his long fingers, he threw the shirt into the wardrobe. He took out a lighter and lit a cigarette. As the smoke rose, only his perfect upper body could be seen. Every inch of his abdominal muscles was sexy. He was only wearing a pair of black handmade trousers. The tailored trousers made his legs look especially slender. The black belt around his waist had been untied and pinned to the side. It was sexy and lethal. Chapter 113. Fujio smiled and looked up at Qin Mo. Her eyes were too beautiful. Then, she tiptoed and moved her thin lips close to Qin Mo's left ear. She said in a seductive voice, "Brother Mo, if you want to see me undress so badly, I will think that you are interested in me." Qin Mo's eyes darkened, and he pulled the young man away. Fujio lost her balance and almost hit the clothes rack behind her. Qin Mo reached out in time and pulled the young man back. His face was obviously a little cold, but he also had a faint smile on his face. "Where did you learn these words from?" Fujio saw that the man didn't want to let go of her. The fragrant cigarette smell lingered in her nose, but she wasn't in a hurry. She said lazily, "I went to nightclubs a lot, and I learned it." "Brother Mo, you know my reputation." "You had a reputation?" Qin Mo's eyes darkened. He stuffed the unfinished cigarette into the young man's mouth, reached out his hand, and patted the little face that made him angry and hateful. His voice was still light, but it was irresistible. "Get over there and change your clothes. Next time you talk in my ear, I will tear you apart." Fujio believed in the Almighty's ability to do what he said, especially when it came to disciplining her. As the Almighty's little brother, there were a lot of things she had to be careful of. But fortunately, after the Almighty pushed her away, he seemed to dislike her approaching. He changed his clothes faster as if he was saying, "Hurry up and get over here." From start to finish, the Almighty was cold and aloof, but his face was indeed handsome. Even when he was wearing sportswear, he still looked like the main characters in comics, handsome and noble beyond belief. Fujio looked at the back of that person walking out and secretly let out a sigh of relief. She walked to her clothes, threw her school jacket aside, and then bent down to take it off. Fujio took off her clothes in a handsome and fast way. But what she didn't expect was that when she took the sportswear and was about to put it on, there was a click. The door to the changing room was opened. The man leaned elegantly against the doorframe and looked at her calmly. He raised his brows. "Is this why you didn't want to change your clothes just now? Is it because you're too thin?" Jean Wan raised her eyebrows. "Is this the reason why you didn't want to change your clothes just now?" Fujio was extremely glad that she hadn't closed the wardrobe just now. The half-open door was just enough to cover her chest area. Realizing that the man was walking towards her, Fujio quickly put the top over her head and pulled it up to her waist. The man walked to her side, pulled her over with one hand, combed her messy hair, and looked at her with deep eyes. "What are you panicking about?" Fujio lowered her eyes and deliberately lowered her voice. "I'm afraid that Brother Mo will laugh at me if he sees me. My body isn't as good as yours. It's shriveled, too pale, and I don't even have abs." Hearing the youngster's words, Qin Mo's fingers paused. When he was the youngster's age, he seemed to be very mindful of his own figure. No wonder this guy had been throwing a tantrum since the beginning and refused to take off his clothes. So it was the rebellious side of puberty at work. This was something Qin Mo could understand. In his opinion, the youngster was good in all aspects except for flirting. It was okay to be a little rebellious, and this little rebellious was related to the youngster's self-esteem. As an older brother, he should give the youngster more privacy. Chapter 114. If Secretary Liang knew what Qin Mo was thinking right now, he would be glad that his CEO finally realized that he wasn't related to Qin Mo by blood. But this kind of awareness seemed to be more like a younger brother complex. Qin Mo didn't think that he was leaning towards the young man at all. He looked at Fujio with his deep eyes and said in a calm voice, "You're not manly at all. Come out and run a few more laps later." As he said that, he turned around and played with the black wristband with his slender fingers. His handsome face was cold as usual. Change, I don't want to watch. Fujio. Almighty, can't you just wait outside? Forget it. It was better for the Almighty to stay in front of her. He was too meticulous, too black-bellied, and too familiar with his tricks. If he wasn't careful, people would fall into his trap. When Fujio was a hacker, she had never met such a difficult person to deal with. If the police were all like the Almighty, she really did think a lot before doing things. But the Almighty seemed to be amenable to coaxing but not coercion. As long as she wavered a little, it seemed that the Almighty would really love her like a little brother. Fujio looked at the man's tall and straight back and slowly curled up her lips. After changing, she didn't have to worry anymore. She had a bandage on her chest and a jacket, so she didn't have to worry about anything else. She directly put her hand on Qin Mo's shoulder from behind and acted like a good little brother. Brother Mo, give in to me later. I can't control the ball well. Qin Mo held back for a long time before he slapped the young man's hand down. The Almighty told himself coldly that the young man was in the rebellious phase of adolescence. Any resistance to him might cause some damage to his soul. But the young man was too close, and when that familiar clean and sweet smell came over, he always wanted to pry open the young man's mouth to see how much candy he had eaten. At this time, Shui Yaoyao was already waiting outside the court with a cup of tea in her hand. In the middle of the coffee table was a very beautiful big fruit plate. Coming to this kind of place was not to play tennis, but to enjoy life. Apart from the green grass outside, the temperature inside was adjusted. The brown sofa was very comfortable to lean on, and there was a faint scent of cologne in the air. Shui Yaoyao was still being reserved. Her legs were too thick, and she always wanted to hide them. But when she raised her head and saw the intimate posture of the two, she actually forgot all about being reserved. She just watched in a daze as the young man smiled at her, and then turned his head to whisper into Almighty Qin's ear. The most surprising thing was that Almighty Qin actually curved his lips. Then, he reached out and pinched the young man's neck. Don't bargain with me. 30 minutes per match. Not a second less. Fujio's handsome face fell, and she was a little depressed. Can't I be handsome? Where's the brother con? Your body isn't even worth looking at, and you call yourself handsome? Qin Mo took the racket that the receptionist passed to him and pressed it into the youngster's arms. In a casual tone he said, Play well, don't think of slacking off. The receptionist didn't expect young Master Qin to give his racket to someone else. He looked at Fujio in surprise. Fujio was smart. She could tell from the receptionist's eyes that the racket wasn't provided by the tennis court. It was the Almighty's private property. Chapter 115. Fujio paused, looked up, and set her eyes on the man not far away. He was picking out a racket provided by the court. His slender hands were wrapped in pure black gloves, and he looked quite professional in his professional badminton attire. When he lowered his head, his long and thick eyelashes formed a dark shadow, making him look careless, like a popular star shooting a TV series. If Almighty Qin's current appearance was put on a live broadcast platform, his popularity would probably go up another level. Qin Feng probably noticed the young man's gaze, so he suddenly looked up and looked at Fujio indifferently. What are you up to now? Fujio put the racket back and revealed her handsome canine teeth. She smiled brightly. Nothing, I just think Brother Mo is too handsome, so I want to take a few more glances. Shui Yaoyao was very conflicted as she listened on the side. Why did she feel like His Highness Zhou was flirting with Almighty Qin? Two men were playing tennis together, but Shui Yaoyao felt like they were showing off their love. But those two people were indeed a good match. Shui Yaoyao held her teacup and looked at the court enviously. Fujio met her gaze and smiled lightly. She walked over with her racket and pulled out her notebook from her bag. She leaned over and said to her, Log in and play 2 rounds first. I'll talk to you about the problem during the break. Okay. Shui Yaoyao didn't expect that the young man would still think of her at this time. She felt like she was being taken care of, and her face turned red. Fujio's eyes swept over the fruit platter on the coffee table. She picked up a piece of watermelon and put it in her mouth. Her voice was gentle. You can eat any fruit you want. Don't be shy. Okay. Shui Yaoyao nodded hard. She looked at the young man's face with eyes full of worship. When Qin Mo saw this scene on the court, he bounced the racket in his left hand a few times, and his dark eyes deepened. When Fu Jiu walked over again, she saw that the Almighty's face was a lot colder. Could it be that the game was about to start? So the Almighty's murderous aura was rising? Kickoff. Qin Mo left 2 words for the receptionist beside him before he stood tall and straight in front of the net. Fu Jiu's eyes turned serious. The young man bent his knees, and his side profile was clean and handsome. His silver hair fell to the side of his ears, and he was wearing a pair of black earrings. He smashed the ball hard. Qin Mo calmly observed the direction in which the ball was flying. Then, he turned his body sideways, and with a beautiful posture, he gripped his racket tightly and aimed it at the white ball. Pa! Fu Jiu's forehead was instantly hit. He rubbed his face with the side of his hand. His face was in so much pain that it looked pitiful. Brother Mo, you did it on purpose, didn't you? Hit me in the face? Was she really invited to play badminton? He wasn't here to take revenge on her. Qin Mo looked at the youngster, his eyes dimming. Since you are here to play, focus on playing. Don't always think about flirting with girls. Since when did I always think about flirting with girls? Fu Jiu muttered, feeling a little wronged. Qin Mo's eyes swept over the youngster's fluffy head, and in the end, he couldn't overcome the surging sense of guilt in his heart. He turned his head to look at the receptionist, and his voice wasn't very happy. Go get the ice. Ah, yes. The receptionist still didn't understand what young Master Qin wanted the ice for. Chapter 116. Fu Jiu was stunned. She looked at the man's face in front of her and curled up her lips into a smile. It's not that serious. The receptionist on the side also felt that young Master Qin wasn't treating his little brother, but a porcelain doll. Young Master Qin used to play even harder, but he had never covered someone's forehead in person. Qin Mo's slender fingers tightened, and his voice was very indifferent. You'll hurt more next time if you keep shooting. As he spoke, he pinched the youngster's chin and twisted it lightly with his fingertips. Turn your face over. Fu Jiu didn't feel anything. She held her head high and let Qin Mo cover her forehead for about a minute. Shui Yao Yao, who was still playing games, moved uncomfortably. She felt like she was unnecessary sitting there. It was better for her not to look at the court. It was better for her to reduce her presence. After covering her forehead, Qin Mo served the ball himself. He used a lot less force than before. Fu Jiu was even more handsome than usual when she played, especially when she didn't stop on the court. She kept running back and forth, and her amazing jumping ability matched with her face. She was so youthful that it was enviable. Both of them had good skills, especially Qin Mo. He just stood there and walked back and forth in front of the court without changing his expression. He swung his racket casually, and his amazing skills matched with his perfect, streamlined body, causing the people on the other court to exclaim. This is professional level, right? Who's the one playing? You don't know him? You should have heard of the Qin family, right? Nonsense. I'm not asking about young Master Qin. I'm asking about the youngster he's playing with. Could it be one of the young masters from the military compound? This kind of court was big, and privacy was important. Qin Mo and his friends were treated like VIPs. When the people on the other side looked here, they could only see the figure, but not the face. Hey, young Master Fu. Come over and see if you can see it clearly. Fu Ximing was short, so the adults who were doing business with his father couldn't see him clearly, much less Fu Ximing. He fiddled with the tennis racket in his hand and said, I've seen young Master Qin a few times. Aside from the few people in the military compound, there's no one else around him. There's no need to guess the other party's identity. When those people heard this, they immediately laughed and complimented. That's true, but I haven't seen young Master Qin in real life. Young Master Fu is indeed amazing. That's nothing. Fu Ximing raised his chin indifferently. He was quite arrogant. Fu Zhongyi was elated to hear his son being praised. My son doesn't like to talk much, but he's actually very good at games. Young Master Qin plays games too, so we got to know each other. Since we know each other, why don't we go over and say hello? When those people heard this, they were tempted. Fu Ximing furrowed his brows. Young Master Qin doesn't like to be disturbed when he's playing. In the future. He sounded disappointed, but at least there was still hope. I'll have to rely on young Master Fu's recommendation. Fu Ximing grunted in acknowledgement and glanced in that direction again. In fact, he was thinking if he should find a chance to talk to young Master Qin when he was free. The reason why he came here to play tennis was because he heard that young Master Qin often came here to exercise. He had indeed met young Master Qin a few times before, but it was always at the entrance and they didn't talk much. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.